My name's Michael, but everyone calls me Mikey. Living here in Sandy Bottoms, well, it's usually as sweet as the iced tea Sal down the street makes. And Sal makes a mean iced tea. Sun, surf, the occasional hurricane party that turns into a legend. Life's good. The only real storm cloud on our perpetually sunny horizon? Brenda. Brenda is our HOA president, and not in that, oh, she organizes the Christmas block party kind of way. More in the, I think she secretly yearns for a small Eastern European country to rule with an iron fist and a laminated copy of the bylaws kind of way. Our little slice of paradise sits right on the coast. Most days, the biggest drama is whether the surf's up or if the gulls are going to make off with your unattended fries. We've got this little dirt access path, Egret Road. Sounds fancier than it is. It's mostly used by beach rescue, the guys on ATVs who stop people from becoming shark bait. Local fishermen like Old Man Henderson use it too, plus anyone needing to lug gear down to the quieter stretch of sand, the part where you can actually hear the waves instead of someone's questionable Spotify playlist. It's technically HOA common land, which, as I was about to learn, is like putting a cookie jar in front of a toddler with a crown. "Morning, Sal," I call out one morning, coffee in hand, eyeing the gentle peelers rolling in. "Waves look good." Sal, who's wrestling a rogue garden gnome Brenda probably deems non-compliant, grunts back. "They do, Mikey. If you can get to 'em before Brenda puts up a new sign. Heard she's measuring palm frond overhangs this week." I chuckle. Last month it was lawn height. She was out there with a ruler, for God's sake. My next-door neighbor, Tim, got a violation for excessively vibrant wind chimes. Excessively vibrant. I didn't even know that was a thing. But Brenda, she makes things a thing. This particular Tuesday started like any other. Tuesdays are for discounted tacos down at the Salty Clam. That's a sacred ritual. This Tuesday, however, Brenda decided it was for tyranny. I was heading out, flip-flops on, already tasting that spicy shrimp taco when I saw it. Or rather, what I didn't see, an open path down Egret Road. Instead, there's this ridiculously oversized chain, like something you'd use to anchor a battleship, strung between two freshly concreted posts. A series of laminated, "No trespassing by order of the HOA president" signs are zip-tied to it, flapping in the sea breeze like tiny, angry flags. And there, standing guard, arms crossed, visor set to maximum glare deflection, is Brenda herself. She's even wearing a high-vis yellow vest, as if she's directing traffic at a disaster scene. Which, in a way, I guess she is. A disaster of her own making. Brenda?" I ask, trying to keep the disbelief out of my voice. Mostly. "What's all this? Little Timmy fall down a well on the beach?" She doesn't even look at me. Her gaze is fixed on some distant infraction only she can perceive. She adjusts her visor, the plastic crinkling with authority. "This access point, Michael," she says, her voice as crisp as a freshly printed citation, "is a clear violation of Section 4, Subsection B, Paragraph 3 of the Sandy Bottoms HOA Covenants, unauthorized vehicular access to common natural areas. It's for ecological preservation and safety." I blink. "Ecological? Brenda, this is where the lifeguards drive the ATV if someone's drowning. And Old Man Henderson brings his ancient pickup down here to fish. He can barely walk from the main lot as it is." I gesture towards the endless stretch of sand. "It's sand, and some grass. The ecology seems to be doing okay with the occasional tire track." "Rules are rules, Michael." She finally turns her head, a slight, pitying smile on her lips, the kind that says, "You simple fool, you know nothing of the grand tapestry of governance." Public safety also includes not having unvetted individuals traversing sensitive dune grass. There's perfectly adequate, paved access half a mile north. She gestures vaguely with her clipboard, which I swear is surgically attached to her hand. "Half a mile?" I say. "So if someone's having a heart attack on the South Beach, they should just hold their breath for an extra 10 minutes while the rescue guys go the long way around?" A few other early beachgoers are starting to gather now, a mixture of dog walkers and surfers. I can hear the grumbling start, a low wave of discontent. Mrs. Periwinkle, who walks her 3 yappy poodles every morning, is looking particularly incensed. One of her poodles, Princess Fluffybutt, I think, starts yapping at Brenda's ankles. Brenda doesn't flinch. She's a rock, a really annoying, immaculately coiffed rock. "True emergencies," Brenda declares, her voice rising slightly to project over the poodles and the muttering, "should be directed to 911. They will coordinate with approved HOA channels for appropriate beach access." I stare at her. "Coordinate? So the guy choking on a fishbone waits for a conference call? You're going to form a subcommittee to assess the urgency?" Brenda just gives a curt nod. "Procedure is paramount, Michael. It prevents chaos." Oh, the irony. It's so thick I could spread it on toast. The HOA Facebook group, a place usually reserved for arguing about lost cats and whose turn it is to clean the community pool filter, absolutely exploded. It was like watching a digital pot of lukewarm decaf finally boil over. Lots of steam, misspelled outrage, but not much actual kick. People posted blurry photos of the chain. Someone started a poll. Is Brenda A, a dedicated public servant, or B, a power-mad tyrant who secretly hates sunshine and joy? Option B was winning by a landslide. I tried reasoning with her again the next day. So did Sal. Even Tim, of the excessively vibrant wind chimes, gave it a shot. We found her remeasuring the distance between mailboxes, a stern look on her face. "Brenda," Sal started, his voice calm, a little too calm. "About Egret Road. That's been emergency access for, 30 years? Brenda consulted her clipboard, though I'm pretty sure the answer wasn't on there. "Past practice does not legitimize a current violation, Sal. The covenants are quite clear. And emergency is a subjective term often abused for convenience." "My convenience?" Old Man Henderson had shuffled up, his fishing hat askew. "Brenda, I'm 82. That half-mile walk you're so fond of might as well be a marathon for me. How am I supposed to get my little boat down to the water, or my gear?" Brenda gave him that pitying smile again. "Perhaps a smaller tackle box, Henderson? Or a golf cart? There are approved models listed in Appendix G," I chimed in. "What about the turtle nests? The volunteers use that road to monitor them. Are the turtles supposed to submit a request in triplicate, too?" "The designated Turtle Preservation Society liaison has my direct number for coordinated access," Brenda said, as if that solved everything. "All other access is now restricted." Someone, bless their optimistic heart, suggested an emergency HOA meeting to vote on it. Brenda's smile tightened. "The next scheduled general meeting is in 3 months, as per Bylaw 2.1. A motion can be submitted for the agenda then, with appropriate 30 days prior written notice to the board, and I am the board." Well, she was the president, secretary, and treasurer, since no one else ever volunteered for the sheer thrill of it. The grumbling from the community grew louder. "She's out of control," Mrs. Periwinkle whispered to me, her poodles vibrating with sympathetic rage. "My kids can't get to their surf lessons easily. It's an outrage." That was Mark, who considered himself a local surf god, even if he mostly just fell off his board. The point was, Brenda was universally making life inconvenient, and more importantly, trampling on years of common sense. We were stuck. Trapped by a chain, a clipboard, and a woman who probably ironed her socks. The frustration was palpable. You could almost taste it. and it tasted like cheap coffee and despair. I was staring out at the ocean a few days later, watching a pelican try to swallow a fish way too big for its gullet. It kept tossing its head back, gulping, the fish halfway down, looking utterly ridiculous. Relatable, I thought. That's us, trying to swallow Brenda's latest edict. And then it hit me. An idea so simple, so beautiful, so utterly, magnificently absurd. It just might work. Brenda controlled the land. She had her chains, her signs, her laminated paragraphs. But the water? The water was a free-for-all. Or at least, a different set of rules. I went home. The image of that struggling pelican still in my mind. I pulled up maps of sandy bottoms on my laptop. Tidal charts. Satellite images. My property, thankfully, backed onto a small canal that fed into the intercoastal waterway, which then, with a little dogleg, opened right out to the ocean, not too far from the now forbidden zone of Egret Road's beach access. If one didn't need a road, I typed into the search bar, vehicles for land and water. Boats, obviously. Amphibious cars, too expensive, too complicated. Kayaks, not enough carrying capacity for, say, a frustrated community. And then I saw it. A picture, then a video. A bulbous, slightly ungainly machine skimming over water, then mud, then grass, with a giant fan on the back. A hovercraft. A slow grin spread across my face. I leaned back in my chair, the gears in my head whirring faster than that fan. No way, I muttered to my sleeping Labrador, Buster, who twitched an ear but otherwise remained oblivious to the dawning of genius. Could I? That would be epic. I imagined Brenda's face. She doesn't have a bylaw for altitude, does she? Or cushiontude? The seed was planted. It was a ridiculous, beautiful, noisy seed, and I was going to water the hell out of it. Turns out buying a used hovercraft isn't like picking up a six-pack from the quick E-Mart. There are characters involved. My online quest led me down a rabbit hole of grainy videos, questionable forums, and finally to an ad a few towns over. Slightly used, military spec, allegedly personal hovercraft. Runs good. Needs TLC. Tons of loud cash. The seller's name was Gator Gary. The picture accompanying the ad showed a man with a mullet that could have housed a family of small birds wrestling an actual alligator. This was promising. I drove out to Gary's place, which was less a house and more a collection of corrugated iron sheds, surrounded by what appeared to be a graveyard for retired swamp buggies. The hovercraft itself was impressive, in a Mad Max meets the Swamp People kind of way. It was big, dusty, and had a faded camouflage pattern. So, I said, kicking one of the rubber skirt sections, trying to look like I knew what I was doing. She floats, right? And hovers? Gator Gary, who looked remarkably like his profile picture, minus the alligator but plus a significant layer of engine grease, slapped the side of the dusty machine. A small cloud of what might have been mosquitoes or just sentient rust particles erupted. She's a beaut, ain't she? Floats like a dream, son. Hovers like a big, loud, angry duck after a tequila bender. Bit of a pull to the left when you gun it, but that just adds to her personality. Keeps you on your toes. I walked around it. It smelled faintly of mildew and righteous indignation. Any particular HOA bylaws I should be aware of regarding amphibious assault vehicles? I asked, trying to keep a straight face. Gary squinted at me, then let out a bark of a laugh that sounded like a rusty chainsaw trying to start. Son, where we're going, we don't need HOAs. He winked, then coughed, a dry, rasping sound. Just make sure your tetanus shot is up to date. That'll be $5,000 cash. No checks from city folk. And definitely no homeowners association IOUs or bake sale vouchers. We haggled. Or rather, I tried to haggle. Gary just kept pointing out its unique patina and historical significance. He claimed it once outran a tax collector through the Everglades, a story I only half believed. I got him down to 4,800 and a promise to never mention his name if I ended up on the 6 o'clock news. The test drive was memorable. It involved a near miss with a flock of startled egrets. Ironic, I thought. A moment where I was convinced we were sinking into a patch of mud that looked suspiciously like quicksand, and Gary yelling, "Just give her more gas! She loves the gas!" I bought it. Arranging delivery was another comedic hurdle. "Yeah, hi, I need a flatbed tow," I said into the phone, trying to sound casual. For a very large lawnmower, custom job, with a propeller and a skirt. No, not that kind of skirt. The dispatcher was silent for a long moment. "Sir, have you been drinking?" Getting a 20-foot camo-painted hovercraft into my suburban garage without Brenda, our neighborhood's resident surveillance system, seeing it was mission impossible. Florida Man edition. The flatbed dropped it at the end of my driveway at 2:57 a.m. I'd bribed my teenage nephew Billy and two of his equally nocturnal friends with the promise of unlimited pizza and eternal glory, or at least a good story for their TikToks. "Uncle Mikey," Billy whispered, his eyes wide as he took in the hulking machine under the dim streetlight. "Are you having a midlife crisis? Couldn't you just buy a Corvette like a normal person?" "Where's the fun in that, Billy?" I grunted, positioning myself at the back. "Besides, a Corvette can't make Brenda's eye twitch from 300 yards. Now push, and quietly, like ninjas. Very strong, pizza-fueled ninjas." We shoved, we grunted, we sweated. The hovercraft, even without its engine running, seemed to possess a stubborn unwillingness to be stealthy. It scraped, it groaned. We nearly took out Mrs. Henderson's prize-winning bougainvillea, the one she talked to more than her own husband. Just as we finally got it mostly into the garage, under a giant, suspiciously hovercraft-shaped tarp, I saw her. Brenda. On her pre-dawn power walk, flashlight in hand, visor already firmly in place. My heart leapt into my throat. I did the only thing a rational man in my situation would do. I dove headfirst into my own azalea bushes. Billy and his friends, to their credit, froze like statues, trying to look casual next to a lumpy tarp the size of a small car. Brenda swept her flashlight beam across my yard, paused at the garage, then, with a sniff I could practically hear from my thorny hiding place, continued on her patrol. I emerged, smelling like fertilizer and desperation, picking leaves out of my hair. The next few evenings were spent in the garage, under the dim glow of a work light, surrounded by the aroma of old vinyl and determination. YouTube became my best friend. Tutorials like hovercrafting for dummies and the slightly insane. Basic hovercraft maintenance, don't lose a finger. And steering your personal fan boat away from civilian structures. The controls were a joystick that felt suspiciously like it came from an old Atari, a throttle lever, and a lot of unlabeled switches. It was going to be a learning curve. A steep, potentially damp learning curve. Okay, so maybe launching a personal amphibious vehicle in a residential area had a few legal gray areas I hadn't fully considered in my initial burst of triumphant inspiration. Time to consult Officer Miller, our town's most patient and frequently bewildered cop. I figured it was better to ask a hypothetical question now than answer a lot of pointed ones later from the back of a squad car. I found Miller on his coffee break at Donna's Diner, a local institution where the coffee was strong and the gossip stronger. "Morning, Miller," I said, sliding into the booth opposite him. "Quick question, hypothetically." Officer Miller sighed, slowly putting down his donut. It was a glazed masterpiece, and I felt a pang of guilt for interrupting its consumption. "Mikey, it's 8 a.m. What are you planning now? Did Brenda re-alphabetize the community library books by perceived moral failing again? I chuckled. Nothing like that. Just wondering about amphibious vehicle operation. Say if a person, say me, had a personal watercraft. That also theoretically goes on land, and it's registered as a boat, and I launched it from, say, a public waterway, or even my own private property adjacent to one. Miller took a slow sip of his coffee. His eyes narrowed. Are we talking about Egret Road again, Mikey? The one Brenda's turned into Fort Knox with that rusty chain and those angry little signs? Allegedly, a rusty chain, I corrected. And the signs are more passive-aggressive than truly angry. But yes, that general geographic area of contention. If a certain road, a rescue road, mind you, was unfairly and perhaps illegally blocked by an unelected quasi-dictator with a penchant for laminated notices. Miller held up a hand. Whoa there, counselor. Let's keep the sovereign citizen manifestos to a minimum before I've had my second donut. Look. He leaned forward, lowering his voice. As long as you're not endangering anyone, you're not breaking noise ordinances during daylight hours. And that thing sounds like a herd of angry elephants in a wind tunnel, from what I hear about those contraptions, and the vehicle is legally registered for water use if it touches state waters. It's probably a civil matter between you and the HOA. They can fine you, you can argue. It's a whole song and dance. He picked up his donut again. Just try not to end up on the national news, okay? My wife watches those Florida Man compilations, and I'd rather not see my town or you featured. I grinned. No promises on the Florida Man angle, Miller, but I appreciate the clarification. I left Donna's feeling cautiously optimistic, or at least not immediately arrestable. First order of business. Get a very official-looking inflatable dinghy registration number decal and slap it on the side of the military spec Angry Duck. Just in case. While I was busy transforming my garage into a secret hovercraft lair and brushing up on maritime law, sort of, Brenda, bless her pointy little hat, was doubling down. You'd think she was guarding the last Twinkie on Earth, the way she was fortifying Egret Road. The chain apparently wasn't enough. Now, a series of official-looking concrete planters had appeared, staggered across the entrance. I recognized them. They were the lightweight plastic ones from Home Depot, the kind you can lift with one hand if you haven't skipped arm day. She'd probably filled them with quick-set cement herself. Dedication. You had to give her that. Misguided, infuriating dedication. She also increased her patrol frequency. I'd see her power walking past the road entrance at odd hours, her visor glinting, her clipboard held at the ready, like a knight-errant defending her realm from the barbarian hordes, that is us, the residents who just wanted to get to the damn beach. Then the pièce de résistance. A new sign, bigger, angrier, professionally printed this time. It read, "Violators will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of HOA bylaws and applicable local ordinances." No, Michael, that doesn't mean you can just pay a fine and consider it a convenience fee. This is your final warning. She had actually put my name on it. My name. I stood there, reading it, a slow burn starting in my gut. Oh, it was on. It was so incredibly, personally, Hovercraft launchingly on. The line hadn't just been crossed. Brenda had stomped on it, laminated it, and then cited it in a strongly worded addendum. It was Saturday morning, prime beach time. The sun was blazing, the sky was that perfect shade of Florida blue, and the smell of salt and sunscreen was in the air. And Brenda, bless her control freak heart, had outdone herself. A minor, almost comedic emergency was unfolding down by the Egret Road blockade. Old Man Henderson, bless his persistent soul, had attempted to drive his ancient, rattling pickup truck as close to the chain as possible to unload his fishing gear. In the process, he'd gotten a flat tire. Right there. effectively blocking any remaining pedestrian access around Brenda's concrete-filled plastic planter Maginot Line. He was now engaged in a heated, though mostly one-sided, debate with Brenda, who was explaining, with diagrams she seemed to produce from thin air, how his flat tire was a violation of aesthetic harmony and probably attracting undesirable insects. Further down the actual beach, a small drama was playing out. Some kid's beloved giant inflatable unicorn, the kind with rainbow mane and a perpetually surprised expression, had decided to make a bid for freedom and was slowly drifting out towards the Bahamas. Their parents were frantic, running along the shoreline, trying to get the attention of the lifeguards who were stationed way up by the main public access, oblivious. If only there was a quick way to get an ATV down there. Brenda, meanwhile, was now lecturing the distressed unicorn parents about how unauthorized, oversized novelty flotation devices were also under review by the Ad Hoc Committee for Beach Enjoyment Standards, a committee, I suspected, that consisted solely of Brenda and her reflection. I saw all this from my porch, sipping my coffee. The universe, it seemed, was providing the perfect alignment of chaos and opportunity. The community was watching. Brenda was peak Brenda. It was now, or it was never. "Showtime," I muttered to Buster, who just thumped his tail, probably hoping for a piece of bacon. I strode to my garage, a strange sense of calm, mixed with an almost giddy anticipation bubbling up inside me. The crowd from the Egret Road tire incident, their attention drawn by my purposeful stride, started to drift over, curious. Old man Henderson had even stopped shaking his fist at Brenda to squint in my direction. I took a deep breath. With a theatricality I didn't know I possessed, I flung open the garage doors. Gasps. A collective intake of breath from the assembled neighbors. Billy, my nephew, who'd apparently sensed impending viral content, was already there, phone held aloft, recording for TikTok. There she was, the military spec angry duck, looking slightly less dusty, slightly more menacing, and about to fulfill her glorious, absurd destiny. "Mikey, is that a—" Sal started, his jaw practically on his flip-flops. I grinned, pulling on a pair of ridiculously oversized aviator sunglasses and a battered captain's hat I'd found at a thrift store. It clashed wonderfully with my board shorts. "Yep," I announced, my voice louder than I intended. "Brenda-proof beach access, ecological too, barely touches the ground. Say hello to the Egret escape vehicle." I'd workshopped a few names. That one felt suitably triumphant. I climbed into the cockpit, the vinyl seat surprisingly comfortable. The neighbors were murmuring, pointing, phones flashing. I could see Brenda, 50 yards away, still lecturing the unicorn parents. She hadn't noticed us yet, but she would. Oh, she would. I turned the key. The engine coughed, sputtered, then roared to life with the sound of 1,000 angry vacuum cleaners in a metal garbage can. It was glorious. It was loud. It kicked up a whirlwind of dust, leaves, and probably a few confused garden gnomes from Mrs. Periwinkle's yard. Brenda heard it. Of course she heard it. Her head, mid-sentence about the structural integrity of inflatable vinyl, whipped around. Her eyes, even from this distance, widened. Her mouth, which had been forming the word unapproved, simply hung open. Her face. Oh man, her face. It was a cinematic masterpiece. It went through all 5 stages of grief, denial, anger, bargaining. I imagined her silently bargaining with the HOA gods, depression, and finally, a sort of stunned, horrified acceptance. I think she might have even invented a couple of new stages on the spot, like visor-adjusting disbelief and clipboard-clutching catatonia. I gave a jaunty wave, a salute to freedom and absurdity. I gripped the joystick. I pushed the throttle lever forward. The angry duck shimmied, lifted a few inches off my driveway with a whoosh, and then, with me clinging on for dear life and grinning like a lunatic, we were off. We skimmed down the driveway, a majestic, noisy, camo-painted cloud of righteous fury. Across the small patch of St. Augustine grass that Brenda had once cited me for being a quarter-inch too high. And then, the moment of truth. Brenda was standing right by her ridiculous chain and planter barricade, frozen like a deer in the headlights of an oncoming, well, hovercraft. I had a choice. Go around on the grass? Tempting. But where was the symbolism in that? I aimed straight for the gap between two of her faux concrete planters. With a defiant roar from the engine and a triumphant cackle from me, which I later heard Billy captured perfectly on audio, the egret escape vehicle surged forward. It didn't smash through the chain. Oh no, it simply rose above it. It skimmed over the chain, over the planters, a beautiful, air-cushioned middle finger to petty tyranny. The prop wash hit Brenda full in the face. Her meticulously sprayed hair went from helmet firm to wind-swept scarecrow in about 0.5 seconds. Her clipboard went flying. Her visor cartwheeled into a hibiscus bush. The hovercraft hit the sandy part of Egret Road, then the beach itself with a triumphant roar and a spray of sand and seawater. I pulled back on the throttle, did a slightly wobbly but undeniably stylish donut in the shallows, and then gently brought her to rest right at the water's edge, pointing towards the distressed unicorn. The crowd, Old Man Henderson, the unicorn parents, Sal, Tim, Mrs. Periwinkle, her poodles now barking in what I chose to interpret as joyous support, and about 20 other assorted Sandy Bottoms residents erupted. Cheers, whistles, applause. Phones were held high, capturing every glorious, ridiculous second. Brenda was left standing amidst her defeated barricade, looking small and bewildered. Her laminated signs flapped forlornly. So yeah, that happened. Turns out, Billy's TikTok of Florida Man versus HOA Karen Hovercraft Edition. Feet, the egret escape vehicle. Beach freedom, Karen gets owned. Got like a bazillion views. I was trending. Me, Mikey from Sandy Bottoms, and my angry duck. My phone didn't stop buzzing for 3 days. People were sending me messages from Brazil, from Australia, from some tiny village in Scotland. Apparently, HOA Karens are a global phenomenon, and the fantasy of defeating one with a personal hovercraft has universal appeal. I became a local legend. It was weird. People I'd only ever nodded to before were high-fiving me in the aisle at the grocery store. The salty clam named a taco after me, the Hoverin' Hibiscus Heatwave. It had pineapple salsa and a lot of jalapenos. The lifeguards, after discreetly recovering the inflatable unicorn, I offered, but they said their ATV was fine now, unofficially thanked me with a case of beer. Old Man Henderson pressed a perfectly filleted red snapper into my hands, tears in his eyes. "You done good, son," he'd rasped. "You done real good for all of us." Officer Miller showed up at my door the next evening, looking tired but with a distinct twinkle in his eye. He held up his phone, showing Billy's TikTok. "Mikey," he said, shaking his head slowly, a reluctant smile playing on his lips. I believe my exact words were, "Try not to end up on the national news." This clip was just featured on a segment called When Florida Fights Back. "My wife is asking for your autograph." I shrugged, grinning. Technically, Miller, it was international. Someone in Japan wants to license the design for a manga. And Brenda? Oh, sweet, clipboard-wielding Brenda. She was humiliated. Utterly, magnificently, and very publicly. She apparently tried to issue a formal HOA violation for operation of an unapproved and excessively noisy air cushion vehicle within a restricted residential zone, causing emotional distress to topiary and an HOA president. I framed it, but the rest of the HOA board, who until now had mostly been a collection of names on a forgotten letterhead, suddenly found their voices. Spurred to action by a combination of viral fame, overwhelming public opinion, and probably a deep-seated fear of also ending up in a TikTok video, they held an emergency meeting, a real one. Brenda was encouraged to take an extended leave of absence for health reasons. Everyone knew it was advanced-stage shamefluenza. The chain on Egret Road, along with the Home Depot planters, quietly disappeared overnight. Vanished, poof. "Probably the same gnomes that steal left socks," I told Sal, as we watched the sunrise from the newly liberated beach. The town even, eventually, put up a proper, official-looking Beach Rescue and Community Access Egret Road sign. No laminating involved. Sandy Bottoms went back to normal. Well, a new normal. One where everyone knew that if you pushed us too far, things might just get amphibious. I still take the Egret escape vehicle out for a spin now and then, mostly on weekends. It's become a bit of a quirky town mascot. Kids wave, tourists take pictures, dogs bark, but it's a happier kind of bark now. Just last week, Sal and I were down on that perfect stretch of sand, the one Brenda tried to keep us from. Fishing rods out, beers cold. "Still can't believe you pulled that off, Mikey," Sal said, shaking his head, a grin plastered across his face. "A hovercraft, against Brenda." I took a long sip of my beer, watching the waves roll in unhindered. "Hey," I said, the captain's hat still finding its way onto my head on special occasions. "When life gives you a tyrannical HOA president with a laminated copy of the bylaws, you don't argue. You don't form a subcommittee." I winked. "You build a hovercraft. Or, buy one from a guy named Gator Gary. Either way, the beach is open. And that, my friends, is what I call a win."